The train screeched into the dusty platform of a half-forgotten station, the whistle echoing against the barren hills like the cry of a dying beast. The woman in the faded blue dress clutched her carpetbag tighter, her gloved hands trembling. This was supposed to be the beginning of a new life, the fresh start she had prayed for through sleepless nights and endless shame. She stepped down, her boots sinking into dirt instead of cobblestone, the scent of sagebrush replacing the perfume of cities left behind. She looked around. No one was there. No man waiting with flowers. No carriage. No familiar name shouted. Only silence, the rattling wind, and the echo of her own heart pounding. Her name was Clara, and she had answered an advertisement for a mail-order bride in Kansas. She carried a letter folded neatly in her pocket, promising her a husband, a farm, and a place where she could belong. But as the train pulled away, leaving her on the platform, dread slithered into her bones. She looked up at the cracked wooden sign swaying in the wind. This was not Newton, Kansas. She had gotten off at the wrong station. Her throat went dry, and panic clawed at her chest. She whispered a prayer, but it was cut short by the sound of a small voice. "Papa?" Clara turned sharply. A little girl, no older than 6, stood a few yards away, her eyes wide and glistening with hope. She wore a patched calico dress and clutched a ragged doll to her chest. And she was staring directly at Clara. "Papa," the girl cried again, though her voice cracked with something more desperate than joy. She turned her face upward, as if speaking to heaven, and whispered, "God finally answered us." Clara's heart thundered. The girl's gaze never wavered, her little hand reaching out as if Clara had been meant for her all along. Before Clara could speak, heavy boots crunched against gravel. A tall man emerged from behind the station house, a rifle slung over his shoulder, his hat low over his face. His stride was steady, but his eyes, when they lifted to meet hers, held a sorrow so deep it was almost violent. The child ran to him, gripping his leg. "Papa, she's here. God sent her." The man's jaw tightened, his gaze flickering between his daughter and the stranger who stood frozen in place. His voice was rough, a rasp carved from grief. "Who are you, ma'am?" Clara swallowed, her mouth dry. I was on my way to meet someone. But I must have gotten off too soon." The little girl pulled at her father's coat. "Don't you see, Papa? We prayed and prayed. Mama's gone, but God sent her instead." The man's stare softened, just slightly, but his lips remained pressed in a grim line. He tipped his hat. "This here is my daughter, Annie. My name's Samuel. We live a mile west. You look lost." Lost was an understatement. Clara had no ticket for another train, no money for food, and no familiar soul within 100 miles. Fear gripped her, but so did something else, something she could not name when Annie's small hand slipped into hers without hesitation, as though fate itself had written it so. Samuel watched the gesture, his breath catching in a silence thick with memory. He studied Clara, then finally spoke. "You best come with us. Night falls fast out here, and coyotes don't care much if you're lost or found." Clara hesitated, but Annie tugged harder, her little eyes begging without words. Clara nodded slowly. The walk to their homestead was long, the sky bleeding into shades of fire as the sun sank behind the horizon. Samuel walked ahead, tall and broad-shouldered, though weariness weighed on him like invisible chains. Annie skipped beside Clara, chattering about the animals they had, about how lonely the nights were, about the stars she prayed to when Papa was too tired to smile. When they reached the house, a weathered cabin with missing shingles and a porch that groaned with age, Clara's heart clenched. It was not much, but it was alive with the warmth of someone's desperate attempt at survival. Samuel lit a lantern, its glow casting shadows that flickered like ghosts on the walls. "You can rest here tonight," he said, his voice careful, as if he was wary of every word. "Tomorrow, we'll see about getting you back on a train." Annie frowned. "But Papa, she's supposed to stay." Samuel crouched down, resting a heavy hand on his daughter's shoulder. "Don't go dreamin' things that ain't so, little bird." Clara turned away, her throat tight. She had not told them the truth, that she had been bound for a man she had never met, a man who may not have wanted her anyway. She had no real destination, only an escape from the life she had fled. Perhaps God had abandoned her, or perhaps he had not. That night, as the cabin filled with the soft crackle of the fire, Samuel's grief became a living presence. A faded photograph sat on the mantel, a woman with kind eyes holding a baby. Annie whispered to Clara when Samuel wasn't looking. "That's Mama. She went to heaven last winter. Papa, don't smile no more. But I told him God would send somebody. And then you came." The child's certainty rattled Clara's soul. In the days that followed, Samuel tried to keep distance. He split wood, mended fences, worked the land with the weight of a man who had lost his heart. But Annie clung to Clara, dragging her into the rhythm of their days, feeding chickens, kneading bread, hanging laundry on the line. Clara felt herself slipping into their world like water into dry earth. Samuel noticed. He noticed the way Annie laughed again, the way the cabin seemed less hollow with another voice inside. He noticed Clara's quiet strength, how she carried scars of her own but bore them without complaint. He fought it, the pull inside his chest. But each night when Annie whispered prayers that, "God, don't let her leave us," Samuel's walls cracked a little more. One evening, after a storm rolled across the plains, Clara found Samuel sitting alone on the porch, staring at the sky that still trembled with lightning. She stepped beside him. "You loved her very much," she said softly, her eyes on the storm. Samuel's jaw tightened. "Still do. Ain't a thing in this world gonna change that." "I know," Clara whispered. "I'm not here to replace her." He turned, his eyes searching hers in the dark. "Then why are you here, Clara?" Her throat caught. She had not spoken her past aloud in years, but it came spilling out. The mistakes, the shame, the reason she answered a letter promising a new life. She confessed she had no husband waiting, no home to go back to. She confessed she had gotten off at the wrong station, and maybe God had led her there for reasons she could not yet see. Samuel was silent a long time. Then, slowly, he nodded, his eyes heavy with something unspoken. It was Annie who decided everything. A week later, she crawled into her father's lap, tears streaking her cheeks. "Don't let her leave, Papa. Please. God sent her for us. Don't send her away." Samuel's arms tightened around his daughter, his face buried in her hair. His voice broke when he whispered, "I don't deserve such mercy." But when he lifted his eyes to Clara, something had shifted. He rose, crossed the room, and stood before her. His hand trembled as it reached for hers. "I can't promise you riches," he said, voice raw. "I can't promise you I'll ever stop missing her. But I can promise you this, we'll make something out of the pieces we got left. If you'll stay." Tears blurred Clara's vision. She had been lost, abandoned, cast aside. Yet here, in the middle of nowhere, the little girl's faith had pulled her into the heart of a family broken but not beyond repair. She nodded, her voice steady. "I'll stay." Annie squealed with joy, leaping into Clara's arms, whispering over and over, "God answered us. God answered us." And Samuel, for the first time since his wife's passing, let himself believe that maybe, just maybe, he had.